In this video, we're going to learn how to simplify rational expressions, and this is going to involve some factoring, okay, because you're going to have various types of polynomials. Sometimes you're going to have binomials. Some of them could be perfect squares. You could have perfect cubes. You can also have trinomials. You need to pick a method to factor a trinomial. There are numerous methods. So there are many different things to keep in mind. You also need to know how to find the GCF when needed or when necessary. Okay, so in this first example, those are two binomials. A rational expression is basically polynomials in fraction form. Okay, this is clearly in a fraction form. We have a numerator, 3x plus 21, and we have a denominator, 5x plus 35. The only way to factor both of these polynomials is that we're going to have to take out a GCF. Okay, and remember what I said, a GCF is the greatest number that we can pick so that it will go into 3 and 21. The biggest number that goes into 3 and 21 would be fact 3. Okay? And then x plus 7 is left behind. Why? Because 3 is factored out, so the x stays behind in the parentheses. And then 3 times what is 21? Well, the only number that would have to be 7. And it's plus, of course. And then we need to find the GCF in the bottom. Well, the GCF of 5 and 35 is going to be a 5. All right, and then the x is left behind. And then 5 times what is 35? Again, it has to be a 7. Okay? And now, once you factor both expressions, then we want to look for terms that cancel, that are alike in both the numerator and denominator. And you can clearly see that the x plus 7s will in fact cancel, so you're just left with 3 over 5. All right, and that would be the answer for that. Okay? The next one, okay, is going to be this. All right. When we factor these two trinomials, there are many methods we can use, okay? The AC method, the trial and error, okay? There's also other methods too where you can incorporate factor by grouping, okay? So in one of my videos I showed you how to do that. I showed you how to do the AC method, okay? The AC method is pretty methodical because it incorporates a lot of things we've learned about greatest common factor and factor by grouping. So that is how I'm going to factor those, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and factor my first trinomial over here. I'm going to do my work over here. And then my C term, so notice my A term is a coefficient of 1. So all I got to do is find my factors of my C term. Okay, so this is my C term. All right, so all the factors of 3 are going to be 1 and 3. That's really the only choice you have. Okay, so if that's the case, then I'm going to go ahead and write down my first term, write down my last term, leave some space, and then choose my 1 and 3. Since x is my variable, I'm going to call that 1x and 3x. Now I just need to know what do the signs have to be in order to get a minus 2 in the middle. The only way that's going to work if this was a plus 1 and a minus 3, because plus 1 minus 3, x, give me the minus 2x. So I know that that's going to work. All right, so I'm going to split them into two groups called factor by grouping, and then I'm going to factor the GCF out on the left. What is the GCF out on the left? It's going to be an x. Pick out the smallest exponent, right, which is x to the first power. What's remaining? Well, x times x gives me x squared. X times 1 gives me the x. On the right side, since my leading coefficient of the first term, negative 3x, is negative, I'm going to factor that negative out. My GCF is going to be a negative 3. And now what's left behind? X. Now, negative 3 times what is negative 3? Well, it has to be a plus 1. You notice that these are the same. So my two factors will be x plus 1 because they appear on both sides. And then what's not in my parentheses, which is x and negative 3, that goes here, x minus 3. So I can literally replace the numerator now with x plus 1, x minus 3. Now I need to factor the other trinomial, so I'm going to write that over here, x squared plus 6x plus 5. And we want to find all the factors of the c term, which is 5. Again, the a coefficient is 1, so we don't need to multiply 1 times 5. So all the coefficients of 5 would just be 1 and 5. And those are the ones we're going to pick because that's the only choice we have. So write down your first term, write down your last term, leave some space, and then go ahead and pick 1x and 5x. We're going to attach the x because that's the variable we're using. What do the signs have to be in order to get a plus 6x? Well, it has to be a plus 1x and a plus 5x. That's the only way to get 6x in the middle. See, the middle term is going to dictate what the signs have to be. Okay? Split them down the middle, which is called factor by grouping. Take out the GCF again. The GCF on the left is again x. What's remaining? X plus 1. My GCF on the right is going to be a plus 5 because that leading coefficient with the 5x is a plus. So put a plus here, and then 5 is the biggest number that goes into 5 and 5. What do we have left? X plus 1. Okay? Because 5 times x is 5x and 5 times 1 is 5. You notice that these are the same, which is what we want. So therefore, that's one of my factors. And then look at this. My x and plus 5 go in their own parentheses. So what are my two factors in the bottom? Well, it's going to be x plus 1 times x plus 5. Now what two terms cancel? Well, the x plus 1's cancel, and then now I'm just left with x minus 3 over x plus 5. And that is my answer. So don't forget, my answer for the first one is this one. My answer for the second one is this one. So yeah, it took a little work, but we got the answer. Now, you can choose whatever method you know. There are multiple methods for factoring. This is just one of them that I'm showing you. Okay, so if you don't like this method, I totally understand. Try another method that you're more familiar with, or maybe you're used to, and then, see if you can get the same answer I get. Okay? Okay, so let's go ahead and do another one on the other slide. So we have 2x squared minus 7x minus 4, and that's divided by x squared plus 3x minus 28. Again, we want to find, look at the top trinomial. The top trinomial doesn't have an a coefficient of 1, it's actually a 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the AC method, which means this is your a coefficient and this is your c coefficient. Okay? And we're going to multiply the two together, and that's why it's called AC. So 2 times 4 will in fact give me 8. What are all the factors of 8? 1 and 8. 2 times 4 are the only options that give me that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down my first term, skip some space, write down my last term, and now choose a combination that I have here that will give me 7. You notice that 1 and 8 will in fact give me 7. Okay. So let's see what we get here. Okay. So we're going to pick the 1 and the 8. We're going to call that 1x and 8x. I just need to know what the signs have to be in order to get a minus 7. The only way that's going to work, plus 1 minus 8 gives me the minus 7. And then we're going to split them down the middle, factor by grouping, take out the GCF. What is the GCF on the left side? It's going to be x. We take out the smallest exponent with the variable when they're the same. Everything else stays in the parentheses. 2x plus 1. Okay. Now the leading coefficient of negative 8x is negative, so we're going to take out that negative, and then the GCF between 8 and 4 is going to be a 4. So again, what's remaining? Well, negative 4 times what is 8x? It's going to be a 2x, positive 2x. A negative 4 times what is a negative 4? It's going to be a positive 1. You notice that these are identical, so my two factors are going to be 2x plus 1, and this will go in its own set of parentheses, x minus 4. So I'm going to replace the numerator with 2x plus 1 with times x minus 4. Now we're going to factor the second trinomial over here, which will be probably a little easier because the a coefficient is 1, so we don't need to multiply anything. So we're going to find all the factors of 28. 1 times 28, 2 times 14, 4 times 7. Don't forget we chose the 1 and 8 here. So what combination gives me a difference of 3? It looks like the 4 and the 7 are going to do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to write down our first term, write down our last term, leave some space, and we're going to choose 4x and 7x. And now, what do my signs have to be in order to get a positive 3? Well, it has to be a minus 4 plus 7. Split them down the middle, take out the GCF on the left. What is my GCF on the left? It has to be an x. Everything else stays inside. X times what is x squared? Well, it has to be x minus, and then x times what is negative 4x? Minus 4. What is the GCF on the right side? Again, the leading coefficient of 7x is a plus, so that needs to be there. And then 7 would be my GCF between 7 and 28. And again, x minus 4. So when I distribute that, I get 7x minus 28. Notice that the x minus 4s are identical, so my two factors are x minus 4, and then x plus 7 go here. So I'm going to replace my denominator with x minus 4 and x plus 7. Now what terms cancel? You notice that the x minus 4's cancel. Now you're just left with 2x plus 1 over x plus 7. And that would be my answer for that. Okay? All right.